Stop what you're doing and close your eyes for a second. Imagine you are 19 years old. You are soaking wet. You are seasick, throwing up bile because you've been bouncing in a metal box on the ocean for 4 hours. You are carrying 60 pounds of gear on your back. You can't see anything except the gray steel wall in front of you. Suddenly, the engine screams. The boat hits the sand. A whistle blows, and that steel wall, the ramp, slams down into the water. You expect to see a beach. Instead, you see hell. Instantly, the air is filled with a sound like ripping canvas. Zzz, crack, thud. That's the sound of German MG-42 machine guns firing 1,200 rounds a minute. The guy in front of you? Gone. The guy next to you? Gone. The water turns red. You have to jump into that water. You have to run toward that fire. This was the reality for the first wave at Omaha Beach on June 6, 1944. We call it D-Day. They called it the abattoir, the slaughterhouse. Today, we aren't talking about the grand strategy. We are zooming in on the first 20 minutes of the invasion, where a group of small-town kids from Virginia paid the highest price in American history. Welcome to Valor and Heritage. Before we hit the beach, we need to meet the guys in the boats, specifically Company A of the 116th Infantry Regiment. These weren't random draftees from all over the country. They were National Guard. They all came from the same place, Bedford, Virginia, a tiny farming town in the Blue Ridge Mountains. These guys grew up together. They played baseball together. They dated each other's sisters. There were sets of brothers in the same boat, the Hoback brothers, the Parker brothers. When they enlisted, they thought they'd be protecting their homes. They had no idea they would be chosen to lead the greatest invasion in human history. The plan for Omaha Beach was simple on paper. We land at low tide, we blow up the obstacles, we rush the bunkers, we win. The generals thought the aerial bombardment had destroyed the German defenses. They told the men, "Don't worry, the beach will be a crater field. The Germans will be too dazed to fight." They were dead wrong. The weather was terrible. The clouds were thick. The bombers were afraid of hitting their own ships, so they delayed their drops by a few seconds. Those few seconds meant the bombs fell 3 miles inland, hitting nothing but French cows. The German bunkers on Omaha Beach were untouched. They were fully manned. They had breakfast. They checked their ammo belts, and they watched the American boats coming in. It wasn't going to be a walk in the park. It was going to be a turkey shoot. As the Bedford boys approached the sector codenamed Dog Green, the waves were swamping the boats. Men were using their helmets to bail out water. The officers were screaming, "Keep your heads down!" But you couldn't keep your head down. You had to look. And what they saw was a massive cliff 100 feet high, bristling with guns. 6:30 a.m. H hour. The ramp of the lead boat drops. In movies, soldiers run down the ramp and charge. In reality, the moment the ramp dropped, the German machine guns opened fire directly into the boat. The entire front row of men was killed instantly before they even took a step. The men behind them didn't have a choice. They had to jump over the bodies of their friends. They jumped into water that was over their heads. They sank. Remember that 60 pounds of gear? If you didn't cut your straps instantly, you drowned. Many men died without ever firing a shot, dragged to the bottom by their own ammunition. Those who made it to the surface had to wade 200 yards to dry sand. 200 yards! That's 2 football fields, in knee-deep water, while being shot at by snipers, mortars, and artillery. There was no cover. The only cover was the beach obstacles, those metal crosses the Germans put there to stop tanks. Men hid behind them, shivering, listening to the bullets pinging off the metal inches from their faces. 6:40 a.m., 10 minutes in, Company A was destroyed. All the officers were dead or wounded. The sergeants were dead. The radios were broken. The Bedford boys were gone. Of the 30 men in one boat, only 2 survived. The water at the edge of the beach was literally thick with blood. It was chaos. Units were mixed up. Nobody knew what to do. The invasion was stalled. The commanders on the ships actually considered pulling out. They thought, "We've failed. Omaha is lost." But then, something incredible happened. The survivors, the guys who were just regular Joes, the ones who were shaking with fear, realized that if they stayed on the beach, they would die. The only way to live was to move forward. We are halfway up the beach. The worst is over, but the fight is just beginning. Before we storm the bunkers, I have a mission for you. If you respect the sacrifice these men made, do not let their story die. Hit that subscribe button and share this video. We tell the truth about history, no matter how brutal. Join the regiment. Now, let's get off this beach. It's 7:30 a.m. The beach is a disaster zone. Men are huddled against a small seawall, a pile of rocks at the high tide mark. It's the only safe spot, but they're trapped. They can't go back and they can't go forward. Enter Brigadier General Norman Coda. He wasn't hiding in a bunker. He was walking on the beach, waving his pistol, chewing on a cigar, ignoring the bullets. He walked up to a group of terrified soldiers and famously asked, "What outfit is this?" Someone yelled, "5th Rangers." Coda yelled back, "Well, God damn it, if you are Rangers, lead the way off this beach." That was the spark. Rangers lead the way became their motto. Small groups of men started to move. They didn't charge in a big line like in World War I. They used fire and maneuver. 2 guys shoot, 1 guy runs. 2 guys shoot, 1 guy runs. They crawled through minefields. They cut barbed wire with their bare hands and wire cutters while being shot at. They couldn't attack the main bunkers head on. That was suicide. So they climbed the bluffs between the bunkers. They grabbed roots, grass, anything to pull themselves up the steep cliffs. The Germans couldn't depress their guns low enough to hit them. Once they got to the top, the tables turned. The Americans were angry. They had just watched their friends get slaughtered. They flanked the German bunkers. They threw grenades into the firing slits. They used flamethrowers. The invincible Atlantic Wall began to crack. By noon, the Americans had opened the exits. The tanks started moving up. The impossible invasion had succeeded. But the cost was unbearable. Let's go back to Bedford, Virginia. For weeks, the town didn't know. The telegrams were delayed. People knew the invasion happened, but they didn't know who died. Then, on July 17th, the telegraph machine at the local drugstore started clicking. It didn't stop. The Secretary of War desires me to express his deep regret. The Secretary of War desires me to express his deep regret. In a town of only 3,000 people, 19 boys were killed in the first 15 minutes of D-Day. 4 more died later in the campaign. Proportionally, no town in America suffered a greater loss on D-Day than Bedford. Families lost brothers, neighbors lost neighbors. The town was devastated. Today, the National D-Day Memorial stands in Bedford, not in Washington, D.C., not in New York, in Bedford. It stands there to remind us that freedom isn't free. It's paid for by regular kids who loved baseball and their moms and who walked into machine gun fire because it was the right thing to do. When you look at the American flag, don't just see a piece of cloth. See the water at Omaha Beach. See the cliffs. See the boys from Bedford. We will never see their like again. If this story moved you, please leave a comment. We remember. Next time on Valor and Heritage, we're heading to the Pacific.
We're going to talk about the most terrifying weapon of the war, not the atomic bomb, but the flamethrower, and the Marines who used it on Iwo Jima. Stay vigilant.